At some point, you realize that another book, another quote, or another lecture will never fill the emptiness in your soul. External knowledge, no matter how vast, is still borrowed fragments. It can spark temporary excitement, give you the illusion of progress, but sooner or later, the void always returns. Because the truth is, information, when reduced to memorization and repetition, has never been enough to create transformation. There comes a turning point on every journey. The moment you understand that what you need is not more information, but silence, so that what you already know has the chance to sink in and become part of your very being. In silence, you finally hear the echo from within. No longer the noise of a mind desperate to prove itself, no longer the restless current of ambition, but a pure space where answers have always been waiting. Silence is like a still lake. Only when the water stops rippling can the sky reflect itself clearly. The human mind is no different. When you stop seeking validation from the outside, when you stop chasing knowledge as a treasure to display, that is the moment you begin to touch the true depth of understanding. The moment you sit quietly without needing to prove your wisdom, without trying to persuade anyone, you start to see the scattered fragments of years past falling into place. And then you realize the answers were never in the pages of a book, but in your ability to listen to your own inner voice. Knowledge may point the way, but silence is the door you must walk through. Within that silence, you discover you don't have to chase the world for meaning because meaning already exists in your very presence. We live in an age where noise dominates every corner. People compete to speak, to perform, to prove their worth through what they know. Yet in all that clamor, few are brave enough to choose silence, and it is precisely that rarity where wisdom begins. For wisdom does not come from the quantity of what you remember, but from the depth of what you embody. A person may read thousands of pages, listen to hundreds of lectures, but if they never pause to let it all settle, if they never allow it to permeate their breath, their choices, then it remains nothing more than scattered notes, powerless to transform. Silence forces you to face yourself. It makes you realize how often you've spoken just to cover a void, how often you've sought knowledge only to soothe insecurity. And when you finally face that emptiness, you see the truth. Real understanding doesn't need to be displayed, doesn't need external approval. It only needs to be lived, experienced, absorbed until it becomes as natural as breathing. Silence is not a lack, it is fullness. It is the space where knowledge stops being words and starts becoming lived experience. It is the bridge that connects you back to yourself, to the clarity that has always been there. And once you've tasted that silence, you understand you don't need to chase another source of knowledge to feel complete. You only need to listen. You only need to stay within that quiet long enough to realize the answer you've been searching for has always been inside you, waiting for the moment you became still enough to hear it. When you touch a profound truth, your first instinct is almost always to share it. You feel illuminated, as if you've just discovered the key to a door you've long been yearning to open. You want to shout it out to the world, to prove that you've changed, that you've seen something extraordinary. Yet in that very moment, ancient wisdom whispers, "Do not rush, for there are truths whose power fades the sooner they are spoken." A new truth is like a tender seedling. If you yank it out of the soil too quickly just to show it off, it will wither. The seed needs time to root, to be shielded from storms, to grow quietly before it can stand tall. Truth within you is the same. It needs silence to sink into your thoughts, your choices, your actions. Reveal it too soon, and you drain it of its strength, reducing it to empty words rather than lived experience. We often mistake immediate sharing for passion or generosity, but behind it lies the subtle voice of the ego. We speak out because we want recognition, praise, validation that we've realized something. Yet wisdom does not grow in the soil of recognition. It only takes root in silence and experience. The more urgently you speak, the more you reveal the impatience of the ego, and the weaker the truth becomes. Let the new insight work on you first. Let it endure your doubts, your struggles, your tests. Let it shape the way you respond in moments that challenge you. When you've lived through enough and see that your belief no longer wavers, then the truth has truly become part of who you are. Only then do your words carry weight, because they are no longer a retelling, but a reflection of your lived reality. In the early stages of awakening, Many fall into the temptation to prove. They want to preach, to explain to friends, to convince the world that they've changed. But if you look closely, the hidden driver is still the hunger for approval. And that very need ties you back to the ego you're trying to transcend. True awakening does not need to be declared, it needs to be lived. It does not demand that you prove, it asks you to embody. Silence in the beginning is a hard discipline because within you is a restless energy pushing to spill into words. But this is the moment of choice. Will you let the ego lead, or will you let wisdom take root in silence? The wise always choose the latter, for they know that a truth not yet rooted cannot be given away. And if you try, you'll only hand someone else a false map, a path not yet solid. What gives truth its power is not that you speak of it, but that you live it. Others may hear your words and doubt, but they cannot deny the consistency of your life. And it is that consistency that speaks louder than any declaration. So when something profound arrives in you, resist the urge to see it as a gift to hand out immediately. Treat it instead as a seed to be safeguarded. Let silence be the soil that nourishes it. Let time do its work. Let you and the truth grow into one. Do not fear that silence will rob you of the chance to share or lessen the value of what you've received. On the contrary, silence is the only way to protect it from the erosion of ego, from the doubts of others, from the judgments that come too soon. A real truth never demands haste. It waits. And when you are ready, when you have lived it fully, you may find you don't need to say anything at all. Your presence alone will be enough for others to feel it. So when a new discovery comes, pause before you speak. Ask yourself, is this the time to live it first? And almost always, the answer will be yes. Let silence be your first teacher. Because only in silence can truth take deep root. And once it has become part of your very being, independent of anyone's approval or denial, you'll understand not everything is meant to be spoken. Some truths are meant to be lived, and living them is the most powerful form of sharing. When awakening begins, you realize the world around you no longer feels the same. The things that once thrilled you now seem dull. The places you once longed to enter suddenly feel cramped, noisy, out of tune with the rhythm inside you. Your eyes no longer chase glitter, your ears grow weary of constant noise, and your heart no longer finds aliveness in the crowd. And that is when loneliness arrives. Not the loneliness of lacking people around, but the loneliness of a soul that has changed while most of the world still stands still. This loneliness is subtle and difficult to describe. It is not sadness, but an invisible distance between you and everything else. You may sit in a crowded room and yet feel apart. You long to share the shift within you, to explain how you have changed, but every word feels misplaced. Others are not yet ready to understand, and you have not yet found a language to make them understand. In that gap, the ego whispers, "Speak, explain, prove to them you are awakened." But that is only temptation, luring you back into the search for approval you've just left behind. Loneliness on this path is necessary. It is the cocoon the caterpillar must endure before becoming the butterfly. You must go through separation to learn to stand alone. You must learn to listen to your own inner voice even when no one else affirms you. For awakening is not a walk through the crowd, it is a journey you often take in silence. The urge to explain, to be recognized, is one of the greatest challenges. It tempts you to trade inner peace for an external nod of approval. But remember, recognition cannot turn an experience into truth. Only living it fully can make it real. Every attempt to explain too soon only leaks energy, weakening the clarity you are cultivating. The world is filled with people eager to speak, but few have the patience to live in silence. Loneliness is the lesson that trains you in that patience. When there is no one left to lean on, you are forced to turn inward and draw strength from yourself. And once you find it, you'll realize that your silent presence holds more power than 1,000 explanations. Others may not yet understand you, but they will feel the change in your eyes, in your choices, in your calm response to the things that once provoked you. Loneliness is not a sign you are lost. It is proof you are moving in the right direction. It shows you have left the old behind, but have not yet arrived in a new environment that matches your growth. It is the in-between space that every awakened soul must pass through. If you have the patience to walk with it, that quiet stretch becomes the firm foundation that frees you from the need for recognition. Loneliness will not make you weaker, it will make you clearer, steadier, more resilient. Let loneliness teach you that you do not need to explain. Let it remind you that awakening is not a slogan you shout, but a way of living day by day. Loneliness will test you, will tempt you to run back to the crowd just to ease the emptiness. But if you dare to sit still, if you dare to stay within that emptiness, you'll see it is not frightening. It is a silent teacher guiding you to maturity without an audience. And when you move through this stage, you no longer see loneliness as an enemy, but as a loyal companion. It shields you from the temptation to prove, from the hunger for approval. It teaches you to walk alone, so that when someone does join your journey, you are not dependent. Because true freedom arrives only when you are complete within yourself, and the loneliness of awakening is the very first test of that freedom. When a new truth first awakens within you, it is fragile, like a tender sprout breaking through the soil. You may feel the urge to show it to the world, to share it as proof that you've seen something great. Yet in that very moment, silence becomes your necessary armor, not because the truth is shameful or must be hidden, but because it is not yet strong enough to withstand the storms of doubt and judgment. Others may not be ready to understand you. Some are still absorbed in paths you've already left behind. Some may mock what they cannot see the value of. Others may even challenge or attack you, clinging to the comfort of their familiar beliefs. If you expose this tender seed too soon, it risks being trampled under cold stares before it has rooted firmly within you. Silence in this stage is not avoidance, it is protection. It protects you from wavering when your conviction is still delicate. It shields truth from being dragged into debate instead of being nourished through real experience. Like a newly lit flame, if you expose it to the wind too early, it will go out. But kept sheltered, given time, it will grow into a fire that can illuminate an entire room. Perhaps you've known the excitement of discovering something profound, only to share it immediately and be met with indifference or doubt. And that doubt, even unintentional, planted doubt inside you. This is why silence is essential. Not because others are malicious, but because they are not ready. And if you are not yet steady, even a frown, a skeptical question, or a mocking smile can shake your faith. Silence gives you time to test the truth through action. It allows you to live with it, to face challenges through it, to fail and rise again with it. Only then does the truth become part of your very being, impossible to be destroyed. Others may argue or deny it, but they cannot erase what you have lived, what you have endured. And it is in that moment you are ready to share, not to convince, but simply to reflect what has become self-evident within you. Silence also preserves the sacredness of your discovery. Not every truth is meant to become casual conversation. Some truths are treasures to be honored. When you keep them in your heart, they do not fade. They grow brighter. But spoken too soon, they risk becoming slogans, losing their mystery, reduced to hollow words. Do not mistake silence for cowardice. In truth, silence demands more courage than speaking. To be silent is to trust so deeply in what you've found that you no longer need validation from anyone else. It is an unspoken declaration. I know this has value, and I will live it before anyone else can understand. That patience is what transforms truth from an idea into real power. So when a new truth takes root within you, resist the urge to rush it into words. Let silence shelter it. Let time nourish it. Let your actions prove it. A young truth does not need noise, it needs protection. And the greatest protection you can give it is silence. When you do this, you'll see that silence not only preserves the truth, but strengthens you, making you more steady, more resilient, and ultimately more worthy of what you have found. One of the greatest temptations after you discover a truth for yourself is the desire to awaken others. You believe you've seen the light, and the most natural impulse is to shine that light on everyone. You want to share, to explain, to pull people out of the darkness they're stuck in. It feels noble, but in reality, it is a subtle mistake. Because awakening is never something you can hand to another. It can only be chosen when they are ready. Imagine walking into a room where people have lived in darkness for years. Their eyes have adjusted. They've found comfort in that dimness. Then you, with eyes full of light, suddenly shine a brilliant lamp into their faces. You think you're offering a gift, but to them it feels like intrusion. They squint, resist, even grow angry, not because the light is wrong, but because they are not yet ready to receive it. When you try to impose truth on a mind unprepared, you only strengthen its resistance. The mistake lies in believing it's your responsibility to carry others with you. In truth, awakening is a personal journey. Every soul has its own rhythm, its own season, and no one can force that process. A seed only sprouts when the soil is moist, the season right, the timing aligned. If you dig it up and shout, "Grow now," you only kill its potential. People are no different. They don't change because you tell them to. They change only when their own inner voice calls. Often, the urge to awaken others comes because you cannot yet bear your own loneliness. You crave allies to reassure you that you're not crazy, that what you've found is real. But that craving turns your truth into a plea for validation. And in doing so, you hand your power to others, placing the fragile roots of your discovery in hands unready to hold them. The wise know not everyone can walk beside them, and that is not a tragedy. They understand that silence and action are stronger lanterns than preaching. You don't need to force others to see what you see. You only need to live it steadily, authentically. In time, when others notice the peace and steadiness radiating from you, they will grow curious. And only in curiosity does the door open. Those not ready will not only refuse, but may mock or even attack you, not out of malice, but because your change forces them to confront their own stagnation. They will try to pull you back to the starting line to protect their comfort zone. If your roots are not deep, you risk being drawn back. This is why silence in the beginning is essential. The urge to awaken others harms both you and them. Forced light makes them resist harder, building thicker walls around their hearts. Instead of allowing the seed of awakening to grow naturally, you harden the soil. Only by respecting the timing of each soul can you truly understand the wisdom of awakening. So remember, you are not here to convince, you are here to evolve. Your path is not everyone's path. Your duty is not to lift others with words, but to lift yourself through action. And when your change is real, when you stand firm in your truth, you become the silent yet powerful invitation. Those meant to will come. Those not ready will stay behind. And you don't need to worry. Awakening others is not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to live fully aligned with the truth you've discovered. Let your presence speak louder than any sermon. When you walk with quiet steadiness, you need not pull anyone, yet some will naturally follow. That is how truth spreads, not through imposition, but through the quiet gravity of a life truly transformed. True power is not the ability to speak louder, argue better, or overwhelm others with noise. True power is knowing when to remain silent, when to restrain yourself to preserve your inner peace. Strength is the ability to act. Power is the wisdom to choose not to act, even when you easily could. It is this restraint that reveals a mature soul and a deeply rooted wisdom. In a world where everyone craves attention, where everyone fights to be heard, silence becomes the ultimate symbol of power. Those who are truly strong don't need to debate to prove themselves, don't need to raise their voice to dominate, don't need to demand respect from others. Their presence alone carries weight. They don't chase recognition because they already hold certainty within. And for that reason, their silence is more powerful than 1,000 justifications. Many mistake silence for weakness or compromise. In reality, silence demands far greater courage than any reaction. To restrain the ego when it wants to rise, to hold peace when provoked, to resist being lured into meaningless conflict, this is the mark of profound self-mastery. The person who easily gets angry, who reacts to every provocation, is not strong but easily controlled. They hand their power away with every taunt. By contrast, the one who remains silent guards their energy. They stand steady like a mountain, unmoved by storms, and that unshakable presence commands respect without a word. Think of the greatest fighters. They are not the ones who boast of their skills, not the ones constantly displaying strength. They are calm, composed, often appearing humble. But that is the truest sign of power. They don't need to prove. because they know their strength within. Their silence is their proof. Life is the same. The deepest wisdom doesn't come from those who speak the most, but from those whose very presence speaks for them. Real power is forged through restraint. Restraint does not mean denying emotions, it means directing them wisely. When you restrain, you are not carried away by impulse. You choose response over reaction. When to walk away instead of argue, when to smile instead of flare up, when to remain silent instead of wasting words. And it is those choices that build an unshakable strength, one that no external force can shake. In restraint and silence, you find freedom. You are no longer enslaved by praise or criticism, no longer swayed by recognition or rejection. Others may say whatever they want, but they cannot touch the peace within you. And once you reach that state, you hold a power. No one can take away the power of self-mastery. The world is loud, and most people mistake loudness for strength. But noisy strength is an illusion. True power is quiet, steady, enduring. It does not seek attention, for its stillness naturally draws it. The truly powerful are not the ones who make a room listen to their words, but the ones who make a room fall silent with their presence. Remember this, restraint does not make you smaller, it makes you greater. Silence does not make you weak, it makes you untouchable. True power is not in proving yourself right, but in no longer needing to prove anything at all. When you master silence, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, no one in the world can ever master you. Silence is not only a discipline of the mind, but also a medicine for healing. In the moments of deepest pain, when your mind is stretched by memories and your heart weighed down by wounds, your instinct often tells you to speak, to confide in someone, to seek empathy as relief. Yet often, silence is the safest place. In silence, you don't have to justify your sadness. You don't have to prove you are hurting. You only need to sit with it, feel it fully, and allow the pain space to dissolve on its own. Silence is like a darkened room where wounds can knit themselves back together, undisturbed by the gaze or judgment of others. In relationships, silence holds a power that words cannot measure. We tend to believe that connection is built through dialogue, through endless conversations. But sometimes, what the other person needs most is not advice, but wordless presence. Silence creates the space for them to face themselves, to hear their own heart more clearly, instead of being crowded by your opinions. At times, silence is the most tender form of love. It shows trust that you believe they can find their own answers. It is not abandonment, but a gentle presence that allows them to grow in their own journey. In action, silence becomes a weapon of focus and protection. When you are nurturing a dream, a plan, or a vision, speaking too much of it scatters its energy. Every word shared is a fragment of strength leaking away, a seed exposed before its roots are secure. Others may unintentionally sow doubt, envy, or questions that shake your confidence. Silence guards your vision, allowing it to grow strong and steady, untouched by external winds. The greatest successes are often built in quiet, so that when they are ready, the results themselves will speak louder than any announcement. Silence in healing, in relationships, and in action all share one essence. They return you to wholeness. Silence frees you from dependency on others' reactions, from being swayed by praise or blame, from being unsettled by doubt. It gives you the space to grow authentically into a maturity that needs no validation. And when you live with this silence, you begin to realize that your power does not lie in words, but in the consistency between what you believe and what you do. Silence in pain allows the heart to mend itself. Silence in love allows others to find their own strength. Silence in action allows your dreams to take root and grow unshaken. All of it leads to the same truth. Silence is not emptiness, but fullness. It carries trust, strength, and wisdom. It is the language of those who no longer need to prove. So next time you feel the urge to speak, just to ease your heart, try sitting quietly in silence. When you want to help someone with advice, try offering them your still presence. When you feel the need to share your plans for encouragement, try holding them close and letting your actions speak. You will see that silence does not make you weaker, but stronger. It teaches you patience, trust, and resilience, the ability to stand steady in the noise without losing clarity. And that is the foundation of becoming unshakable, moving forward with true strength. When the journey comes to its end, silence is no longer a discipline, but a natural state of being. You no longer feel the need to argue to prove you are right, no longer need to explain so others will understand, no longer feel compelled to boast with every new step forward. You become like a mountain, steady, silent, unmoved by the storms outside. A mountain does not need to shout to prove its majesty, it simply exists, and its very presence commands reverence. In this state, you see clearly the difference between noisy power and quiet power. Noisy power always requires an audience, always depends on recognition to survive. Quiet power depends on no one. It stands on its own, rooted in inner steadiness. Others may not understand you, may doubt you, even oppose you, but they cannot touch the peace you hold within. And that peace becomes the most powerful testimony of all. To become a mountain in silence means you no longer sway with praise or blame. Compliments do not make you arrogant. Criticisms do not make you falter. You understand that your value is not defined by what others see, but by how you choose to live each day. When silence becomes your foundation, every action carries weight. You don't need to shout to impress. Your steps, your choices, your gaze all bear a gravity no words could equal. The paradox is this: when you stop seeking recognition, you begin to receive true respect. People respect not because you speak beautifully, but because you live authentically. It is not promises or philosophies that set you apart, but the unwavering presence you radiate. When others are near you, they feel peace. They sense something solid, immovable. And whether they say it or not, they know there is a quiet strength that surrounds you. This path is not easy. It demands you let go of the urge to prove, refuse pointless arguments, and rise above the hunger to be seen and acknowledged. But once you've passed through all that, you discover the greatest reward is not admiration, it is absolute freedom within. Freedom from the traps of ego, freedom from the need to be liked, freedom from the fear of being misunderstood. And in that freedom, you stand like a mountain, untouchable. Let your life be the testimony, not your words. Let your calmness stir curiosity. Let your steadiness raise questions. Let the language of powerful silence answer for you. For in the end, it is not noise that defines you, but the quiet consistency of your stillness. When you become a mountain in silence, you don't need to act upon the world changes the way it sees you. You don't need to try to influence, your presence itself becomes influence. And when others come, it is not because you persuaded them, but because they felt the natural pull of your silence. That is the true destination of the journey, to become a person whose silence carries weight, whose presence commands listening without a word, whose stillness earns respect without struggle. For in silence, you have discovered the ultimate power, the power of a soul that has mastered itself.